And now beavers are now local to Canada and Northern America. But the hair is practically the same quality. So actually, theoretically speaking, I should call that the word first stuck to my head. They actually have wool hats. So even if you say beaver hat, except if it contains the skin like a trapper's hat, or like a Soviet kipchak, otherwise they're all wool hats, but different types of wool. So the cheapest what are usually made out of nowadays are these wool felt, 100% wool. This will be knitted wool. Actually, this is acrylic, but just to give you an idea. So, all the hats in the back were kind of like that, the extras and all. Not the gang members, like not McGraw and all, but the actual, extra people. They kind of all had, I guess, just pure sheep, that type of wool. And then Bill the Butcher and some of his gang would have had better quality. They would have had, I wouldn't say hair, to some extent perhaps beaver, and nuptia to some extent beaver or hair, or at least rabbit, probably a mixture of everything put together. Often they mix sheep wool with beaver wool just to bring the price, the cost down, and to a certain, to bring the price down, and perhaps to a certain degree the weight down. Obviously all of them were silk, and yes, so these hats would not actually have been made like I said by 1840s. Actually, since before, practically all the long-haired hats, especially top hats from that period, would all have been silk plush on gossamer frames. No beaver, actually, especially beaver and even nuptia, and to some extent even the hair ones, especially if long hair, because back then especially I think they were not doing it with the machine in the 1860s, even if they did not have the machine yet. So they were so costlier, much heavier. The good point was that it lasted much longer, but they did not really care about that. And the bad point was that it could not be as glossy. You saw how glossy my original 1870s top hat was after I put the tallow on and ironed it, and how easy it was to do. So however much oil you put, and Bill the Butcher, he hardly put any oil, probably no oil at all. If you put oil or glycerin on a long-haired wool hat, they cannot make long hair out of sheep wool. They can only make it out of nuptia, beaver, or to some extent rabbit, yes, and also nuptia and hair, that kind of big rabbit, and mixtures of these. But if your hat mostly contains sheep wool, the cheapest wool, it cannot be long-haired from what I understood. It's not, it's just the wool in itself, the hair in itself cannot be done. So, again, they call it fur, but it is not actually fur, it is actually hair or wool, but this is from other animals. So, this is because it's easier to pronounce. So, basically, because at that time they wanted their hats to be glossy, and especially in the 1860s and 50s, during that period hats were the tallest they ever were, at least in history. So the taller the hat, the more material, the more it is going to be heavy. So if it is one, or if they wanted stronger, perhaps 2 layers of gossamer, it is still going to be clearly, even 2 layers of gossamer is going to be less tall, 2 layers in the crown, less heavy, I meant, than even sheep wool. And also if they wanted to be shiny, they actually needed to contain a lot of either hair, which is heavier than rabbit, or rabbit even, which is still heavier than sheep, or beaver or nuptia, which are both even heavier, I think, than hair or rabbit. So thus they have to be very heavy. Bill the Butcher's hat, I guess, is very heavy. But in truth, they were not very heavy, although they might have been way taller. Some of them were 40 centimeters, or even some, the extreme fairs might have gone above 40, even above 50. But these were complete sort of punks and rebels. So, they were already called punks then. So basically, and also it brought the price down so much, and they could still be reshaped. You know, you can still actually easily reshape gossamer. In truth, it's not as long lasting, but then when the silk would wear out, they would take it off, they would heat it, they might reshape the gossamer, and throw away the old silk, put a new silk coat on top. So, you know, and the silk itself, even the best quality silk was cheaper, because easier to produce than, even without going to the best quality hair, wool or beaver wool, it would still have been cheaper, even the highest quality silk. So this is totally inaccurate. This did exist, obviously, but basically he would have had only very few people, especially in northern US, with such hats. You might have had way more in Canada, or as it really gets to the north of the US, especially for winter, because it got so cold there, or perhaps in Russia and places like that. But there it was nowhere near as cold enough. So they would not have had these hats made out of that material. They would actually have been shinier, and they would have been silk. Especially his white one. His white one is clearly for summer, although there's not summer in the movie, but never mind, it would have been made in that period. You know, even in the 1840s, like at the beginning of the film. So let alone when he has the white one, it was in 1862, it would have been silk, whether polished or not. Because you might argue, it does look exactly like silk when unpolished, but I know it is not, because it is still, I think, for sale. And it is clearly not silk, and even in the movie you may tell it is not silk, you know, because the hat looks too bulky and too heavy for a gossamer hat with a silk hood on top of the gossamer brim and crown. So that, also silk plush. So yeah, the hats were the most inaccurate part, especially since they show so much. Because also the hat, especially such tall hats, like they had back then in the movie, are clearly prominent. Now, like the chap, you know, we had a Matt hat, like two of his gang members. In fact, all of them, except for the red-headed one. They all had hats that were matte, you know, no special finish. You know. Maybe they had a special finish, but no long hair, kind of shiny finish. They did have hats like that, even in sheep wool. Because it was cheaper, and especially in the US, they had specialized in making sheep wool not cheap, especially Stetsoners, because the hats then would be lighter, and perhaps it would still bring the price a fraction down, but still it would be made out of wool. I mean, what we call, you know, sheep wool, and not rabbit wool or hare wool or beaver or milky wool. In the UK, or Europe, they had never been specialized in that, so if you had the cheap wool, it meant it was a cheap hat, you know, kind of low quality like that one. That one is also all battered down, but never mind, it all have it. But in the US, they have really begun specializing in that, at least in the 1860s. So, and even if they were not made out of sheep wool, but hare, rabbit, whatever, they obviously then would have been made out of wool, if not shiny. But the really Bill Bush's hats, they're clearly meant to be shiny, and especially a tall top hat like that. Let alone when having a shiny finish. Even if it does not look very glossy in the photographs at all, it simply meant that it had not been or never been polished, because it does not like the look of a polished hat or whatever. They wanted it to look more like fur, but it would have been silk, you know. As I said, I just explained it. So yeah. But obviously silk is no longer produced, so they could not do that. You know, at least they should have used original ones for the black ones. They could have found those. They would, for, you know, Tammany and his assistant and all the fellows, we have a black top hat, like the priest, the reverend. But obviously they did not bother, and also there would have been a fit issue, because finding these tall stovepipe ones, they have to date from prior to the 1870s, that are always too small. Especially, I know, like, except for the assistant of Tammany and maybe the Reverend, but Tammany, the actor, is quite tall, he's at least my height. It would have been too small, but who cares, there's a film, it would have actually been more accurate. They should have done that, they did not do that, they wanted to create everything, but at least now I know for sure the hats were not period accurate. Again, they would have existed, especially in Canada and colder places, and for more out of the norm people,